In the land of Canaan, where the mountains touched the sky and the wind carried stories of God's promises, there lived a family chosen by God. In that family, a boy named Joseph was born. He was the son of Jacob, grandson of Isaac, and great-grandson of Abraham. From childhood, he heard how God spoke to his forefathers, how he made covenants and promised to form a great nation through them. Joseph did not know it yet, but his own life would become a key part of that promise. His journey would be marked by dreams, betrayal, slavery, prison, and finally power. Through all of this, one truth would shine. God can work even in the darkest moments and turn the worst situations into something good. Joseph was just one young man, but in the hands of an extraordinary God, his life would change the future of an entire people. Joseph came into the world as Jacob's 11th son, but he was the first son of Rachel, the woman Jacob deeply loved, the one he had served 14 long years to marry. For years, Rachel had watched her sister Leah bear children while she remained barren. Her heart ached with shame and longing. Then, as Genesis says, God remembered Rachel. He listened to her, opened her womb, and she finally conceived. When she held her baby boy, tears ran down her face. God has taken away my disgrace, she said softly. She named him Joseph, adding a prayer, May the Lord add to me another son. To Jacob and Rachel, Joseph was not just a child. He was living proof that God hears prayer. He was a sign of mercy after many painful years, a child wrapped in both human love and divine promise. As Joseph grew, everyone could see that he held a special place in his father's heart. Jacob was already an old man, and Joseph, the son of his beloved Rachel, became like a bright light in his later years. Genesis 37 verse 3 says, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. One day, Jacob decided to show this love in a very clear way. He had a special robe made for Joseph, long and richly colored, the kind of garment worn by someone important, not by a field worker. When Joseph put on, the robe seemed to say, without a word, This son is different. This son is favored. To Joseph, it was a gift of love. To Jacob, it was a way to honor the son of his deepest affection. But to his brothers, that robe would become something else entirely. One evening, Joseph hurried into the house, excitement shining in his eyes. Father, brothers, listen to my dream, he said breathlessly. His brothers rolled their eyes, but Joseph continued. We were all in the field binding sheaves of grain. Suddenly, my sheaf stood upright, and yours gathered around mine and bowed down. Silence fell. The brothers stared at him, fury rising. Are you saying we will bow to you? One snapped. Joseph blinked, confused by their anger. I'm only telling you what I saw. Even Jacob, though curious, cautioned him. Joseph, be careful with your words. But Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that the dream meant something important, something bigger than he could yet understand. Not long after that, Joseph dreamed again. This time, it was even stranger. At breakfast, he said, Father, I had another dream. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me. Jacob paused mid-bite, startled. Do you mean to say your mother, your brothers, and I will bow to you? Joseph lowered his eyes, suddenly unsure. His brothers scoffed loudly. This boy has lost his mind, one said. First the grain, now the stars? Their jealousy hardened into hatred. But Jacob, though he rebuked Joseph outwardly, kept the matter in his heart. He had walked with God long enough to know that sometimes divine messages come in troubling forms. Days later, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who were tending the flocks far from home. Go see if it is well with them, Jacob instructed. Yes, father, Joseph answered, tying the colorful robe around him with pride. The journey was long, and Joseph's thoughts drifted between curiosity and unease. When he finally arrived at the fields, he found no one. A passerby approached. You look lost. Who are you seeking? Joseph replied, My brothers, have you seen them? The man nodded. I heard them say they were going to Dothan. Grateful, Joseph continued toward Dothan, unaware that he was walking straight into a moment that would change everything. As Joseph approached Dothan, he spotted his brothers in the distance. He lifted his hand to wave, unaware of the storm brewing in their hearts. Meanwhile, his brothers recognized the silhouette instantly, especially the colorful robe that caught the sunlight. "Look, here comes that dreamer," one hissed. Another spat on the ground. "Let's finish him today. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." Their words were sharp, carrying years of jealousy. Only Reuben hesitated, whispering urgently, "We must not kill him. Throw him into a cistern instead." The brothers exchanged glances, their hatred clouding their judgment. And as Joseph drew closer, smiling innocently, the trap was already set. Joseph barely opened his mouth to greet them when strong hands grabbed him. "Brothers? What are you doing?" he cried, struggling. They ripped off the colorful robe, the symbol of their father's love, and held it up triumphantly as if seizing a trophy. "Let go of me," Joseph pleaded, but they pushed him toward a dry cistern. His voice echoed as he fell into the pit, landing hard on the cold ground. Pain shot through his knees, and he looked upward at the ring of faces staring down, faces of brothers he trusted. "Please," he begged, tears mixing with dust, "don't leave me here." But they turned away, unmoved by his cries. While Joseph's pleas rose in the pit, his brothers sat nearby to eat a meal, their hearts hardened by jealousy. But as they ate, Judah noticed a caravan approaching, its camels loaded with spices and goods bound for Egypt. "Why kill him?" Judah said, his tone sly. "Let's sell him. He is our brother, yes, but we gain nothing by shedding his blood." The others nodded. Money was better than murder. They pulled Joseph from the cistern. Confused and trembling, he cried, "What's happening?" They ignored his fear, handing him over to the merchants for 20 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. As Joseph was tied and led away, he looked back one last time, hoping for mercy. None came. Reuben returned moments later, expecting to rescue Joseph secretly. But when he found the pit empty, he tore his clothes in anguish. "The boy is gone," he shouted. "What will I tell father?" But his grief meant little to the others. They dipped Joseph's robe in goat's blood and carried it home as evidence for their lie. When Jacob saw it, he gasped and clutched the garment. This is Joseph's robe," he cried. "A wild animal has torn him to pieces." His wails filled the household. No one dared tell the truth. The brothers watched their father mourn, guilt tightening like a rope around their hearts. Meanwhile, Joseph walked in chains behind the caravan, dust thick in the air, grief choking his every breath. His father's face, his home, his dreams, all faded behind him. He whispered, "God, where are you?" Yet even in sorrow, a quiet assurance stirred in his heart. When the caravan reached Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. Potiphar examined the young Hebrew carefully. "Strong," he said, "intelligent. I will take him." Joseph bowed respectfully, though inside he trembled. Egypt was a strange land of towering statues, foreign gods, and unfamiliar voices. Still, Joseph resolved, "I will serve faithfully wherever God places me." Life in Potiphar's household quickly revealed Joseph's remarkable character. Whether tending to accounts, organizing supplies, or managing servants, Joseph worked with excellence. Potiphar noticed. "This Hebrew," he murmured, "everything he touches prospers." One afternoon, Potiphar called Joseph aside. "From today forward, you will oversee my entire household," he said. "I trust you." Joseph bowed deeply. "My lord, I will serve with honor." Soon, the house flourished under Joseph's leadership. The gardens grew thick with fruit, the storehouses overflowed, and every servant respected him. Even Potiphar's own heart softened toward the young man who brought blessing wherever he went. But Joseph's success attracted the eyes of someone else, Potiphar's wife. She watched him closely, noticing his strength, his dignity, and the calm confidence that set him apart. One day, she approached him as he worked. "Joseph," she whispered, brushing his arm, "come to bed with me." Joseph stepped back instantly. "My lady, I cannot. Your husband trusts me with everything in this house. I will not betray him or God." Her eyes narrowed. "You refuse me?" Joseph remained firm. "I cannot sin against my master or my God." But she persisted day after day, her desire turning into obsession. One afternoon, Joseph entered the house to complete his duties. unaware that all the servants had stepped out. Suddenly, Potiphar's wife grabbed his cloak. "No one is here," she whispered fiercely. "Come with me." Joseph twisted free, so quickly that his cloak tore from his hands. "I will not do this wicked thing," he cried and ran out of the house. Humiliated and furious, she screamed for servants. "He tried to violate me," she lied, holding Joseph's cloak as false evidence. By the time Potiphar arrived, her story was shaped to perfection. "This Hebrew slave mocked me," she said dramatically. Potiphar's anger burned, not knowing the truth. Joseph was taken to prison, a place reserved for Pharaoh's prisoners, dark and heavy with despair. As the guards dragged him inside, Joseph whispered, "Lord, I serve faithfully. Why am I here?" Yet again, God had not abandoned him. The prison warden noticed Joseph's integrity quickly. "You there," he said. "What is your name?" "Joseph," he replied softly. Within days, Joseph was placed in charge of the other prisoners. The warden trusted him completely. Even in chains, Joseph carried the same spirit of excellence that had blessed Potiphar's house. With every task, he reminded himself, "I will honor God, even here." Months later, two important prisoners arrived, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. Both had offended the king, though no one dared say how. Joseph attended to them respectfully. One morning, he found them troubled. "Why do you look so sad today?" he asked. The cupbearer sighed. "We had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." Joseph replied gently, "Interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams." Encouraged, the cupbearer described a vine with 3 branches that blossomed and produced grapes he pressed into Pharaoh's cup. Joseph listened carefully before saying, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your position." Hope lit the cupbearer's eyes. When the baker saw the favorable interpretation, he eagerly shared his own dream. "In mine, 3 baskets of bread were on my head, and birds ate from the top basket." Joseph's expression softened sadly. "This is its meaning," he said quietly. "In 3 days, Pharaoh will execute you, and birds will feast upon your body." Fear washed over the baker's face. Joseph sighed, knowing the message was painful, but refusing to lie. Before they were taken away, Joseph whispered to the cupbearer, "Please, remember me when you are restored. Speak to Pharaoh about my situation. I was wrongly imprisoned." The cupbearer nodded solemnly. 3 days later, Pharaoh held a celebration. Just as Joseph had said, the cupbearer was restored and the baker was executed. But once back in the palace, the cupbearer forgot Joseph completely. Days turned into months, months into years. Joseph remained in prison, though his spirit stayed strong. Then one night, Pharaoh himself had 2 disturbing dreams. In the first, 7 fat cows were eaten by 7 thin cows. In the second, 7 healthy heads of grain were swallowed by 7 withered ones. No magician in Egypt could explain the dreams, and Pharaoh's frustration shook the palace. Suddenly, the cupbearer remembered. "Pharaoh, there's a Hebrew in prison who interprets dreams," he said. Pharaoh immediately ordered Joseph to be brought before him. Joseph was shaved, given fresh clothes, and led into the grand throne room. Standing before Egypt's ruler, he bowed respectfully. Pharaoh spoke sharply. "I've heard you can interpret dreams." Joseph answered calmly, "I cannot, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he seeks." Pharaoh recounted both dreams in detail. Joseph listened, and when Pharaoh finished, he said, "Both dreams are one message. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do." The court grew silent. Joseph continued, 7 years of abundance will come to Egypt, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Joseph stepped forward boldly. "The famine will be so great that the years of plenty will be forgotten. But Pharaoh can prepare. Appoint a wise man to oversee the land. Store 1/5 of the harvest during the good years, and save it for the years of famine." The officials murmured in admiration. Pharaoh looked at Joseph intently. "Can we find anyone wiser than this man?" he asked. Turning to Joseph, he declared, "Since God has revealed this to you, you shall be in charge of Egypt. Only I will be greater than you." He placed a signet ring on Joseph's finger, dressed him in fine linen, and adorned him with gold. Joseph had gone from prisoner to prime minister in a single moment. Joseph began his new mission immediately. He traveled throughout Egypt, supervising granaries and ensuring every city stored grain from the abundant harvests. The land produced so much that they eventually stopped counting. During this time, Joseph married Asenath, and they had 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Joseph said, "God has made me forget my suffering, and God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." When the 7 years of abundance ended, famine struck every nation, but in Egypt there was food. People from every land traveled to Joseph for grain, unknowingly setting the stage for a reunion Joseph had not foreseen. Back in Canaan, Jacob and his sons suffered under the growing famine. One morning, Jacob looked at his hungry household and said sharply, "Why are you staring at each other? Go to Egypt and buy grain before we perish." The brothers prepared to leave, 10 of them, but Jacob held Benjamin back. "He will not go," Jacob insisted. "Harm has already taken Joseph from me. I will not lose another son of Rachel." So the 10 brothers journeyed to Egypt, unaware that the man controlling the nation's grain was the very brother they betrayed. When they entered the palace hall, they bowed low before Joseph, fulfilling the dream he once told them as a boy. Joseph recognized them instantly. Their faces were older, wearier, but unmistakable. Yet they did not recognize him. A ruler dressed in Egyptian linen, speaking through interpreters. Joseph's heart raced, but he kept his expression cold. "Where do you come from?" he demanded. "From Canaan," they answered, "to buy food." Joseph leaned forward. "You are spies," he accused. Shock rippled through the brothers. "No, my lord, we are honest men," they pleaded. "We are 12 brothers. The youngest is home, and one is dead." At the mention of dead, Joseph swallowed hard, fighting emotion. He imprisoned them for 3 days to test their sincerity. On the 3rd day, Joseph summoned them. "If you are honest men," he said, "leave one brother here and take grain home. But you must return with your youngest brother." The brothers exchanged troubled glances. Joseph watched as guilt erupted from their hearts. "We are paying for what we did to Joseph," one whispered. "We saw his distress, and we ignored his cries." Reuben added painfully, "Did I not warn you? But now we must answer for his blood." Joseph turned away, tears burning his eyes. He ordered Simeon bound before them, then secretly instructed his servants to return their silver to their grain sacks. When the brothers reached home and found the silver in their sacks, they trembled with fear. "What is this that God has done to us?" they cried. Jacob listened as they recounted everything: the accusation, Simeon's imprisonment, and the demand for Benjamin. Jacob's face paled. "You want to take Benjamin too?" he cried. "Joseph is gone. Simeon is gone. And now Benjamin? Everything is against me." Reuben pleaded, "Father, let me bring him. You may hold my own sons as collateral." But Jacob refused. The famine worsened until their food ran out completely, and desperation forced Jacob to reconsider. Judah approached Jacob gently. "Father," the man was clear, "we will not see him again without Benjamin. Send him with me. I will take full responsibility." Jacob studied Judah's earnest face, seeing sincerity where once there was arrogance. "At last," he sighed. "If it must be, then take gifts, balm, honey, spices, and double the silver. And may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man." The brothers set off again, hearts heavy but hopeful. Joseph saw them approaching, with Benjamin among them. For a moment Joseph froze, overwhelmed by the sight of his full brother, alive and grown. He whispered to the servant, "Bring them to my house." The brothers panicked when they were led into Joseph's home. "He wants to enslave us because of the silver," they exclaimed. But Joseph's steward calmed them. "Do not be afraid. Your God must have put treasure in your sacks. I received your payment." Then he brought Simeon out to them, and the brothers embraced him. When Joseph entered the room, they bowed again, offering gifts. "Is your father well?" Joseph asked, trying to keep his voice steady. They answered respectfully. Then Joseph's eyes fell on Benjamin. "Is this your youngest brother?" he asked softly. "God be gracious to you, my son." Overwhelmed, Joseph hurried out and wept privately. At the banquet Joseph prepared, the brothers were seated in order of their birth. Something so uncanny They whispered among themselves. "How does he know our ages?" they murmured. Joseph served Benjamin 5 times more food than the others, watching closely for signs of jealousy. But none appeared. The brothers ate together peacefully, something Joseph had not seen since his youth. After the meal, Joseph devised one final test. He ordered his steward, "Fill their sacks with grain, return their silver, and place my silver cup in the youngest one's sack." The steward obeyed, setting the stage for a truth Joseph needed to know. At dawn, the brothers headed home, relieved, hopeful, ready to reunite with their father. But Joseph's steward soon overtook them and accused them of stealing. Horrified, they replied, "Search us. Whoever has the cup will die, and the rest of us will become slaves." They watched breathlessly as the bags were opened, oldest to youngest. Finally, Benjamin's sack was opened, and the silver cup gleamed inside. The brothers froze, then tore their clothes in anguish. "This cannot be." Judah cried. They returned to Joseph's house, hearts shattered. Joseph waited, stern-faced, hiding the storm within. "What have you done?" he demanded. Judah stepped forward, trembling but resolute. "My lord," he said, "we cannot deny what has been found. But the boy, Benjamin, cannot remain here. Our father's life is tied to him. If he does not return with us, our father will die from grief." Judah's voice broke as he continued, "Take me instead. Let me become your slave. But let the boy return home." Joseph's breath caught. He stared at Judah, the same brother who once suggested selling him, now willing to sacrifice himself for Benjamin. The change in Judah pierced Joseph's heart. The test was complete. Unable to control his emotions, Joseph shouted, "Everyone leave me!" The servants hurried out, leaving only Joseph and his brothers. Then Joseph wept so loudly the entire household heard. The brothers watched in confusion. Joseph stepped forward, tears streaming. "I am Joseph," he said. Silence fell. "Is my father still alive?" The brothers were frozen in fear, unable to speak. Joseph moved closer. "Come near to me," he said gently. "I am Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. But do not be afraid. What you meant for harm, God has used for good." The weight of truth shattered years of silence. Joseph embraced Benjamin first, sobbing into his brother's shoulder. Benjamin wept as well, though confused and overwhelmed. Then Joseph turned to his older brothers. One by one, he embraced them, their tears mixing with Joseph's as guilt gave way to relief. "You must return quickly," Joseph said. "Bring my father, bring your families. There are still 5 years of famine ahead. I will provide for you in Egypt." The brothers nodded, still stunned by the mercy Joseph extended. They gathered carts and supplies from Pharaoh to carry the message home. When the brothers reached Canaan, they rushed into Jacob's tent. "Father," they cried, "Joseph is alive." Jacob's eyes widened. No, it cannot be." But when he saw the Egyptian chariots and heard their full story, his spirit revived. "My son Joseph lives," he whispered. "I will go and see him before I die." With renewed strength, Jacob gathered his entire household, 70 souls, and began the journey to Egypt. Along the way, God spoke to him in a night vision. "Do not be afraid to go to Egypt," God said, "for I will make your descendants a great nation there." As Jacob entered Egypt, Joseph prepared his chariot and went out to meet him. The moment Joseph saw his father, he ran to him and embraced him, weeping for a long time. Jacob held him tightly, whispering, "Now I am ready to die, for I have seen your face and know you are alive." Joseph introduced 5 of his brothers to Pharaoh, who offered him the land of Goshen, the best land in Egypt. Joseph also presented his father to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed the ruler of the mighty empire. Under Joseph's guidance, his family settled and prospered in their new home. As the famine continued, Joseph implemented a system to maintain Egypt's stability. People exchanged their money for grain until their money ran out. Then they traded livestock. Finally, they offered their land and labor. Pharaoh acquired nearly all the land in Egypt, except that of the priests, and Joseph established a system where Egyptians farmed for Pharaoh and kept 4/5 of the produce. Despite the harshness of the famine, Egypt survived and thrived because of Joseph's wisdom. Meanwhile, the people of Israel multiplied greatly in Goshen, growing in strength and number. With Pharaoh's permission, Joseph led a grand funeral procession to Canaan. Egyptian official chariots and soldiers joined Jacob's sons to bury him in the cave of Machpelah, the burial place of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah. After the burial, the brothers feared Joseph might now seek revenge. They sent a message saying Jacob had requested forgiveness. When Joseph read it, he wept again. The brothers came before him, bowed low, and said, "We are your slaves." But Joseph shook his head gently. "Do not be afraid." Joseph said softly, "Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to save many lives." His words carried the wisdom of a man who had seen God's hand in every valley and every victory. He reassured them with kindness and provided for them and their children. The fear his brothers carried for decades dissolved into peace. Joseph's forgiveness became one of the greatest demonstrations of grace in the Bible, a love stronger than betrayal. 17 years passed, and Jacob sensed his time was near. He summoned Joseph and said, "Do not bury me in Egypt. Take me to the land of my fathers." Joseph promised. Later, Jacob called his sons and blessed each of them with prophetic words. He crossed his hands to bless Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, giving the younger a greater blessing. Joseph tried to correct him, but Jacob said, "I know, my son, Ephraim will be great." After speaking blessings over all his sons, Jacob breathed his last. Joseph wept over him and kissed him. Joseph lived to see his children's children, and even the third generation of Ephraim. He watched Israel grow into a powerful people within Egypt, just as God had promised Jacob. As Joseph aged, he gathered his brothers and said, "I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you to the land he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." He made them swear to carry his bones back to the promised land when God delivered them. Joseph's faith never wavered, even in death. When Joseph died at 110 years old, he was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. His bones waited for centuries, through oppression, slavery, and the rise of Moses, until Israel finally carried him out during the Exodus. Joshua later buried Joseph's bones in Shechem, fulfilling his final request. Joseph's life, from pit to palace, echoed through generations. He was a dreamer, a sufferer, a leader, and a savior of nations. Joseph's story teaches a truth that never fades. God can turn the darkest moments into divine purpose. Betrayed by brothers, sold as a slave, imprisoned unjustly, Joseph could have given up, yet he held on to integrity, faith, and kindness. And in the end, he saw God's plan unfold in ways he could never have imagined. His words echo through time. You intended it for harm, but God intended it for good. My friends, when life feels unfair or confusing, remember Joseph. God is still working behind the scenes, shaping your story for a purpose greater than anything you can imagine. Hold on, stay faithful, and trust Him through every season. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the Golden Bible Story page on YouTube. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. God bless you.